is a big deal and very important for both of them. Let's get it on. Top right side, we're looking at the main base of our Protoss, who is playing these games out of South Korea. It is Astrea.
And his opponent down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, the teammate of his opponent is the blue Terran player, Future, Team Alpha X. So, Roddy, I have been a huge fan of both of these guys, but I mean, just even in the past, I want to say year, I've just gotten to see them play against each other a bunch of times. And I will say they've been pretty back and forth whenever they do end up playing against each other. I think that Future has more wins on Astrea, but most of those series are like 3-2 series or 4-3 or 2-1. They're always really close back and forth series. And that's actually what gets me super excited about this. It's kind of like a Scarlet versus Neeb situation for me, where it's almost always just like a fun series for me.
No, I can absolutely get behind that. And I think if you love StarCraft 2, you love high-level SC2, then you have to get excited over a matchup like this. These are two of the players that are going to do very well in this tournament. And it would not be a complete shock if either of them wins the entire thing. Of course, we're always looking at Neeb, we're always looking at Scarlet, but you know, if anybody's going to upset them, it's most likely Astrea Future, maybe Namchar as well. But I'd say that's kind of it, right? That's the top 5 that we're looking at. And of course, upsets are possible. But one of them is going to take a big step in finishing top 2 in this group. And that's a big deal, man, because I especially think Astrea is going to have a tough time playing against Namchar as well cross-server. That should be a difficult series for him.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But just in terms of what I feel like these players, I feel like sometimes they do have some weaknesses. Both of these players have shown at times they can be a bit inconsistent. I feel like it's for different reasons, though. When Future is a bit more inconsistent, I feel like it is more of a mentality thing, the way he approaches series from like a mental aspect or how he feels in game when things are not going well. I sometimes think that Future can be on the weaker side for that, and he's been working on that. He's been getting a lot better. Astrea, I feel like when he tends to falter, it's because with his build orders or his play style, he takes a lot of risks and does things that are not necessarily the standard. And sometimes he looks like a genius, and sometimes he kind of just gets punished really hard. So it's kind of cool. It's same sort of attribute, but for different reasons.
It's a good start at this point for Astrea, right? The Adept gets the first SCV, gets a little bit of delay on the command center. Can he get the final SCV before it finishes up? The answer is no. But Future is probably going to have to sacrifice that SCV unless... Well, I guess he's going to try to save it with the Hellions. But that also means that the Orbital is delayed. The Adept is looking for the SCV, can't find it. More importantly, though, the second Adept just walked past the starport. That is a massive scout. At this point, Astrea knows exactly what is happening, and he shouldn't take too much damage. I love the shield battery in the main base. This is still something a lot of people don't do. I think if you know you're playing against these Hellions, they are supposed to deal damage. Just get the battery and make life a little bit easier on yourself.
I was going to ask, what do you recommend to try and deal with this once you do identify that this is going to be heading your way? And yeah, shield battery is going to at least keep some of the probes alive. Obviously, the 3 Hellions can still one-shot a worker, but they aren't always going to one-shot every single one of the worker in a big splash radius. They damage some of the others. We're going to see the Hellions actually unload on the natural and try and dive on in first. It is a full wall, and maybe Future thought for a second it wasn't.
Yeah, I actually think the best play for Future that he could have made here was to pick up all the Hellions and just drop them into the natural. But that's not something you normally do. And that's also something I can only say because we see it all. I think Astrea played a little bit risky there. Astrea is supply block, by the way. That's the big one, Robbie. 54 out of 54 and only now starting the pylon.
Oh, that's going to be really painful. He's also moving out with the Stalkers to try and find the Hellions. The Hellions are now going to sneak by, but at the same time, we also know that that Widow Mine drop is heading on over to the main base. Astrea not pulling his workers right now. The Widow Mines are already burrowing. He's busy dealing with the Hellions.
In the end, the probes... Wow, what? Okay, that was absolutely perfect. I can't believe he only lost 2 probes there. That's ridiculous. A little bit of lost mining time, of course, in the main, in the natural as well, because of the Liberator. I cannot believe with how late that pull was that only 2 workers went down there. I think Future was also focused on the natural, trying to get some good Hellion shots off. Astrea dodged a massive bullet there, because if you take a look at his main base, because of the fact that he built a shield battery in his mineral line, the probes are incredibly clumped up. So normally a Widowmine can get a jackpot of a shot here, and it's a guaranteed 6-7 probes going down. The fact that both of them fired, and they fired at the 2 probes that were split off towards the right side, is pretty remarkable.
It's unbelievable. And the fact that it was just 2 probe losses, not just for the harassment, I mean, that's all the damage Astrea's taken, and maybe a little bit of lost mine time. In the meanwhile, Astrea's killed off a Liberator, he killed off 4 Hellions, he pushed back the medevac. It's still got the Widow Mines alive and inside, so that's one bright side there for Future. But Future probably not going to be too happy with the fact that he did all of this and committed his starport to be proxied for it as well.
You're definitely spot on, but it could have been even better for Astrea, right? If he would have just built workers a little bit more consistent than he did. That supply block at 54, I think, was a real big one. And obviously at that point you need units, and he can spend his money by warping in a couple of additional units. He's in a great spot. I mean, he's up 9 workers at this point. It's 3 bases against 2. So obviously it's good, but it could have been even better. But he's still going to feel pretty happy and satisfied with everything he did.
Yeah, the follow-up over here from Astrea is potentially going to be a really fast 4th base. That'll be pretty interesting. But I was going to say, he also is getting up that robotics base. Just finished up. There's the 4th base. Wow, he's really going to commit to this. And we'll see if he's going to make, Colossus out of that Robo.
And the orbital for Future is flying over now, so, sending that orbital on location while you're down 10, 11 workers, it's playable. But I think we all know that Future, when he plays macro games, he likes to be dominant. He likes to be out on the map, and he likes to play that super fast-paced kind of TVP, which is super fun to watch. But after you commit that much to early game Russian and it doesn't really work out, right? The 2 probes is not what you're hoping for. It's hard to get out on the map right now, because at that point you're just donating units. The Stalker and Zealot count is going to be a little bit too hard. And I have the feeling that Future is always a little uncomfortable when he has to just kind of sit back. It just goes against his nature. He's an aggressive player. He likes to be out on the map and make stuff.
Oh, War Prism loaded up with these 4 Zealots, going to be threatening potentially the main base or the 3rd base in a moment. And he might just be waiting for charge, which just did now complete. Now the War Prism's starting to get head on in, but oh my god, 3 missile turrets are going to be there to greet him. I don't believe Astrea has any idea about those just yet. He's seen 1 missile turret. He's just going to head over to the 3rd base and drop those Zealots off and actually splash damage some of the SCVs with the tanks. Not bad.
Yep. And the tank on the low ground goes down. The tank on the high ground is actually kind of a sitting duck as well. Medevac can try to save it. Won't be able to save it in time. This is some great value here for Astrea, man. It's actually a really good game. Other than its supply block, Astrea hasn't really done a lot of things wrong. I'd love to see a second Robo. That's the only thing. In my opinion, he can afford it. He's rich enough. He's got the infrastructure already for everything else. I think a second Robo is the only thing I'd really love to see. Other than that, he's playing a perfect PvT so far.
Yeah, it seems like he's getting the space to just continue making Colossus off of 1 Robo for now. So maybe he'll just make that transition out to Temple Archive, since he does have that now finished up. Is he going to start up Storm? He's definitely got the resources for it for now, but just worrying about the fact that now his 4th base spreads him out pretty far. He's got to make sure he's got those defenses up, getting up the cannons and the mineral lines, and going just straight into the Archons. So not going to really worry about getting Storm up for now.
Yeah, War Prism speed even being researched already, and 4 base double forge is always a good place to be as a Protoss player. Upgrades are maybe not super good. That's the only thing we can kind of point out, right? Zealots are not going to be very impactful here if they're down an armor upgrade compared to the bio. But the rest of Astrea's army is so good compared to what Future is currently working with.
Yeah, it is funny. I think there is this small little window that is going to be very, very quickly closing, where Future was up maybe 15, 20 supply. But again, like you said, it's going to be about the quality. But now, as we start to see Astrea getting all those gateways finished up, like 12 gateways, the next round of Warpins is going to allow him to overtake Future's army supply. And I think that becomes a really, really scary point for Future. And you might have to rely a lot on positional play to try and find any kind of advantage in a fight.
And let's not forget that Astrea also has some great map vision, right? There are pylons everywhere, a couple of observers, the random Zealot or 2. And that's also really annoying for Future, who once again loves to be out on the map. He loves to drop. But after that early game, he knows that all of his moves are going to be very telegraphed, and Astrea is going to be more than ready to deal with it.
2 more Robos on the way behind this. So it looks like he's getting ready to replenish any Colossus he might lose right now very, very quickly off of 3 Robos. Zealot run by is also going to hit at the perfect moment here, right as Future is starting to move in toward one of Astrea's bases. Future is going to be dealing with a massive round of Zealots, and I don't think that Astrea is going to be able to get up that Nexus and misses the cancel, but it is going to be about this big fight over here.
Perfect timing though on the upgrades for Future, but the Archons, even though they got EMP, they still got a couple of good shots off and they were soaking up some damage. The Colossus are running a little bit low on HP, but this is where those 12 gateways come into play as a lot of Zealots are storming in. Wasn't the greatest fight for Astrea, but it was good enough in the end because he's also dealing economic damage on the other side of the map. The Zealots sneaking into the middle line, and let's not forget, this is still 83 probes on the side of our Protoss with a triple Robo, double Forge setup. Then I'm okay with those kind of fights.
Absolutely. And I mean, behind this now, 3 disruptors being made at a time. That is going to be a tough transition for Future to deal with just so many disruptors suddenly going to be popping out. It's kind of that point where with 1 more round of disruptors, it's not really about splitting. It's about just evading the disruptors until they run out of shots.
Yeah, obviously there's no Fusion Core, there's no Liberators. I'm not exactly sure what the correct play is here for Future. He doesn't have a proper answer. I guess the only thing you can really do is avoid them. But dropping is very hard as well, because once again, Astrea has a lot of map vision, and most of the movement of Future will be shown very early on. So I think at this point, you got to sit back and you got to try to get Liberators out, right? That's kind of the only real play you have.
Yeah, I feel like that might end up being the best move. For now, it looks like Astrea is starting to bunch up his army at the front lines over here. And funny enough, it may end up encountering Future's army, which is an observer right over that. It doesn't seem like Future's noticed it either. He hasn't scanned for it. So this disruptor shot is going to give him a bit of a scare. Maybe Future's going to realize, wait a second, how do you know I was there? There's the scan, picks off the observer. But he needs to defend this high ground position. This is where his planetary is.
Okay, look at that Zealot counterattack at the bottom. That is so many Zealots. Like that's absolutely ridiculous.
Army.
There's still a bunker, but I'm not even sure if that bunker can survive this many Zealots. I'm not even sure if the few Marauders and Ghosts that are coming in from the top side is going to be enough. I mean, this is trademark Astrea as well. And as much as I love this, sometimes I feel like he gets a little carried away and he actually splits off too much army supply. This time, I think it's actually okay, and he's just running over Future at this point. I mean, economically, this game is not fair. Astrea's mining more than 2,000 resources more than his opponent at this point. That's a lot of Zealots, Ruffy.
He's still just not able to clean this up. There's just so many SDVs that are padding this army. There are the disruptor shots also coming on out. Future's doing an okay job of spreading out, but there's only so much you can do when your opponent has that much, and there's so many DTs being warped in. Blink is not quite yet done, but I think I know where this is going, Roddy.
Yep, Future knows as well. I mean, he's going to try one time. He's like, maybe I can avoid the purification Novas, but no chance. Astrea has way too much. GG gets called, and that was a very good game won by Astrea. Just looked good from the beginning to the end. Rafi is joining us again, guys. He didn't go anywhere.
I'm so sorry. I feel bad too because our production team was like, ooh, maybe you shouldn't turn off the cameras. I'm like, no, I'll be fine. I'll remember to turn it back on. Yeah, really kind of tough situation there for Future. And it's also unfortunate because it seems like his aggression was going so well, or was about to go really well with how he was setting everything up. Outside of getting scouted early, those 2 Widowmine shots I really thought were going to get more damage done. The Liberator coming in and teaming together with both the Hellions and the Widowmines, like it all looked like it was going to be really strong, and then just kind of flopped.
Yeah, it's funny because it was pretty obvious that both players were mostly paying attention to everything that was happening in the natural, and that should have been great for the mines. And obviously you can say that maybe Future should have dropped 1 mine on the left side of the mineral line and 1 side on the right line of the mineral line. It makes it a lot harder for Protoss players to pull their probes in a certain way. The 2 mines were very close to each other. That's not ideal, but there was no reaction at first. So that was supposed to be a guaranteed 7, 8, 10 plus probes going down because of how clumped they were in that mineral line because of the shield battery as well. How that only killed 2 probes beats me. I don't even want to think about it anymore. That's crazy. But that obviously set Future up for a very rough mid game where he couldn't be Future. He likes to get out there. He likes to do damage. After a start like that, there's not much you can do. You can only really sit back and you kind of hope that Protoss gets over-eager, throws away a Prism into your turrets. Astrea didn't make any real mistakes and played a pretty awesome PvT.
Absolutely. And a very zealot-heavy composition, as you were talking about before. And I know you did also mention that sometimes Astrea gets a little bit carried away with that. How do you feel like usually that gets punished? Because in my mind, I feel like sometimes you go for that heavy zealot composition, some Widow Mines that go off or something can really set things back. You feel like is that kind of direction you want to see future go, or something else in mind?
I mean, it's more that I've seen games of Astrea where he's in a great spot, but then he gets a bit too fancy and he does like counterattacks or run-bys with like 40 supply, which makes his main army a lot smaller. And then even if his zealots just completely go to town on the other side of the map, he is in danger of losing his main army. And I've seen that happen to him a couple of times. And obviously killing 25 SCVs is awesome, but if you lose 5 Disruptors and 2 Colossus, that's not the trade you want to make, because it takes forever to make those robo units. But last game, honestly, no criticism at all. I think Astrea just played awesome. Got himself in a great spot though. Let's see what game 2 brings us. On the top right side, we look at the main base of our GSL player. This is Astrea.
And in the bottom left, we have the blue Terran player from Alpha X Esports. It is the Cheesadelphia champion, Future.
Now, Ravi, I know that you know all about the history when it comes to the NA scene. Astrea is somebody who's been playing for a long time, right? And he kind of got really, well, pretty good once upon a time. Then he kind of stopped playing. Then he came back, and then he became super good, right? And that's when WCS Winter happens. Is that the correct timeline?
I think so, like kind of. So Astrea, I think he got decently good, but it was really on the ladder. He wasn't getting any real results in tournaments. I think he was playing a bit less in events and that kind of thing. But then he finally started getting a bit better, and he started playing in tournaments and started getting actual results. So I don't know if that he actually stopped playing so much as he just played in less events or you saw him in less events because he wasn't really performing in events.
Okay, because I remember in my early years when I used to live in America, I played Astrea quite a bit. That nickname was always like, I was like, man, this guy's actually pretty good. You know, why don't I see more of him? And then I think he did make it into WCS like once or twice, but never had a fantastic run. And then I feel it got really quiet around him for a while. Just thought he took a break, or maybe he was very busy with school. And then obviously at the end of 2018, I felt that Astrea was getting a lot better again. And then obviously the beginning of 2019, I mean, he had a great run at WCS Winter. And I think it just never really stopped at that point. Astrea just kept on getting better. He kept on improving. And he's really one of the more fun Protoss players to watch outside of Korea.
That I will definitely agree with. And yeah, it's funny. The first time that I started hearing hype from other NA players about Astrea was actually toward the end of 2017, maybe like beginning of 2018, right as Cyril was starting his kind of big reign of dominance. I heard a few murmurings from some of the NA players kind of just talking up Astrea and saying, yeah, this guy is really good. Like, he's really good. You just don't see it because it's not doing it in tournaments. I actually hear the similar thing about another one of the players that's actually in the group, Disc. But Disc, I think, is still sort of struggling to showcase as much of those situations in tournament games. But let's talk a bit about this game, because we did have an engineering bay blocking off that Nexus for a little bit. And Astrea gonna just run past the bunker, delay this command center with a Stalker and Zealot, and see how lucky Future gets with the SCV location here.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter because there is a second Stalker that now gets one more shot up as well. And you gotta be careful if you are Astrea as well, though. You don't really want to lose Stalkers. Now, you could say that one Stalker is trapped, but a recall could happen. I actually love that call of Future to go for the Stalker that's on the top side there and allowing the Reaper to get a few final shots off as well. Now Astrea is forced to recall the Zealot and the Stalker home. I know that the delay on the command center is pretty good. Oh, don't lose the Reaper. Okay, that's a big deal. I really don't think you want to lose the Reaper here if you're Future.
Yeah, that's going to shut down a lot of his vision on the map for a bit, especially since, I mean, if you take a look at Future's vision, he basically just went in, scouted, and saw, okay, Gateway, Cybercore, and a Nexus. Not even technically scouted. So you can probably assume it, but it is definitely not the idea.
Wow. Look at this. I love this. I was talking about this last week and they were making fun of me. A charge opening in PvT coming out of Astrea. Obviously, Future is kind of known for his Marine tank pushes as well. Cheeky Liberator in the main base, maybe while all of that happens. And yeah, Blink is good, but Blink takes longer than Charge, and it only finishes up really by the time that the push shows up. If you surprise your opponent with like 7 or 8 Zealots, opening up Charge is actually really good. I love it, but I don't know if Future is going to make out one of those move. If he's going to make one of those move outs though, because he's getting additional barracks at home right now.
So if I recall, you might be right. This might just end up being like a big charge lot all in. I think he's only sitting on 4 games, so I think he is going for the 3rd base. And this is just the heavy like charge lot style with only 2 gas. Like he goes up to I think almost 4 bases before he even bothers getting a 3rd gas.
Yeah, no, I can obviously get behind that, but I think the main reason why I think this is really awesome is that there are pushes of Terran where Terran basically moves out at 4 minutes and 20 seconds with like 7-8 Marines. They pull a couple SCVs and a tank and a Liberator. And having charge against those kind of Terran move outs is actually amazing. And I think that's why I think it's a really cool play. Unfortunately for Astrea, Future didn't do that because I think he would have been in a super good spot. So it's going to be a more normal game. It's just kind of different now because Astrea has charge and he doesn't have blink.
Yeah, he did actually end up taking those 3rd and 4th gas guys. So maybe, yeah, a little bit of an adaptation since the push never came or anything. And hey, well, he's got so many stalkers. Might as well get that blink, like you said. But we'll see where things go from here. Usually as a Protoss player, Roddy, I mean, you know this. You either want to have a really strong gateway force, like the old school way with the double forge upgrades and everything, or you want to get some splash damage up in. That's what I was going to ask is he only has a Robo and a Twilight. He's going to go for the Robo Bay.
Yeah, I'm expecting just a Colossus opening here. I think this is pretty good for Colossus. I think Disruptus is a little too hit or miss. No pun intended there. Obviously, that's kind of how the unit works, right? But this is going to be interesting. That War Prism is on a collision course with 2 medevacs. That could be very bad. Even though Stim is not done yet, Future is paying attention. Oh, this is so awkward. Stim is almost done. It's going to finish up in a couple of seconds. Now units are being dropped on top of each other. There is no blink yet, so the Stalkers can't really blink forward and save the day. That was a really awkward interaction.
Yeah, it's nice for Astrea that he manages to salvage the Warp Prism, but he also manages to scout out the double drop and kind of delays that for a bit, which was supposed to be timed out again with this Liberator trying to maybe poke back in while the Stalkers are busy. But here comes Future with the full force of the push. He's got the Widow Mines, he's got more medevacs, he's even got a tank in the mix. Astrea gonna be poking forward, trying to meet this somewhat in the middle, and that is definitely what you want to do. Just try and slow this down. Already forcing a siege up. I love it.
The War Prism in the main base is going to be so difficult to deal with here, though. Like, you just don't really expect that. Actually, Future left a couple of units behind, so maybe he was expecting it. Maybe he just knows Astrea very well. At the same time, the Liberator picks up a couple of probe kills on the other side of the map. Well done by Future. I thought that was going to be harder. The armies are getting awfully close to each other as well. Guardian Shield being activated. Are we going to see the Super Battery? There is no Super Battery. There's a lot of Widow Mines here, Ruffy.
Oh, Widow Mines just roasting and toasting a lot of those Zealots, but the Colossus has just dismantled the Marine count. The Siege Tank gets taken care of by the Immortals and the Stalkers from the high ground, and that is a solid cleanup over there for Astrea.
Yeah, that actually did not go as well, I think, as Future was hoping for. He left the Marauders at home to deal with the War Prism, and maybe that was a great call, because otherwise he loses like 10 plus SCVs. But if there's just a single Colossus out, any of those pushes are not that intimidating anymore, because Colossi are amazing against Marines, and this is a fantastic timing as well by Astrea, because his command center is not done yet. He is at least able to save it. Future that is, but oh, it's starting to get rough again. 11 workers down already, and that command center is not even done yet.
Yeah, one of the bright sides over here for Future is that he has at least been staying on top of the upgrades, and by the time the Forge is finished for Astrea, Future is already going to be closing in on 1-1 as 10 seconds away from that +1 armor finishing on up, and would not hate if he was able to get up a second engineering bay. You know, he already has one, and the armory is also finishing up too, so that could be one of his nice little edges and ways to just keep a bit of a lead in this game for the fights.
And I'm super impressed by Astrea. Like, obviously expected him to be good, but he is playing awesome. He's making a lot of correct calls. He's reading the game so well. And I see very little opportunity for Future actually in this series now. there are Liberators. So maybe if you can get those libs up in a good position, then all of a sudden the Protoss can be in a little bit of trouble. But I truly love everything that Astrea has been doing so far. And I think Future just kind of needs a miraculous fight over here.
Oh, man. And yeah, still even got those little zealots positioned around the map ready to be spotters and even just go for potential run-bys later on. As the army for Future walks across the map, so does Astrea. And this is going to get some awkward territory. Oh, my God, the most Future move of them all.
Yep, I mean, Astrea is so far out of position while going up to 4 bases. The Forges are over here as well. Well, I said that the Liberators can get in a good position. How do you like on top of a ramp, Robbie? I absolutely love it, and this means that Astrea's in all sorts of trouble. He can't recall. There is no energy on that Nexus. Oh boy, this is going to be so painful. Losing the Forges, no armor upgrades, no attack upgrades. Templar Archive goes down. The robotics facility is most likely going to fall as well. What a drop. This is game-ending damage. Wow.
Oh, Roddy, I don't even know if I like the idea of trying to return home. I feel like there's no way you can make this work from here, right? He's going to lose so many units just moving up the ramp. The Archons, the Colossus getting a bit of Liberators in a concave as well. Finally, it seems like Astrea is starting to push on through, but there's too many Marauders, and GG. Future ties it up 1-1.
Wow. I mean, we know what Liberators are capable of. I did not really imagine all 4 of them sieging up on top of a ramp and forcing Astrea to move up that ramp. Well, that means that we are getting ready for a game 3 at least. I'm happy for that. Robbie is. We're going to head over to a very quick break, and after that, we'll be back with game 3.
Series is tied up 1-1, and we're going to be moving into game number 3 here between Future and Astrea. Next map is going to be Pillars of Gold. My name is Fear Dragon. I'm joined here by Roddy once again. Oh, Roddy, how are you feeling? That last game ended very, very abruptly with a big doom drop in one of the most Future-esque moves. Is that really something that's repeatable?
No, but I also think that Future is capable of getting himself much better early games than he's been getting so far in the first 2 games. So I don't think we have to really worry about, wow, if Future doesn't get 4 Liberators on top of the ramp in the main base, he can't win. It's like, no. But I do want to point out that that's a bit similar to what we were talking about in the beginning of game 2, where sometimes Astrea gets carried away with run-bys that are a bit too big. Well, this wasn't a run-by, but it's like, Astrea, double forts, Templar Archives, Colossus Tech, you're going up to 4 bases. You don't need to be out on the map there. You really don't. You can just kind of chill and build up your army. Anyways, enough about game 2. As we are getting ready to hop into Pillars of Gold. We're already here. Top right side, the man that maybe should have won game 2. Let's see if he can get the job done in 3 games instead. It's Astrea.
And in the bottom left, we have the blue Terran player from Team Alpha X Esports. He is Future.
I mean, that's just, if I see things like that, I've been there as well, where I'm like, you feel like you're playing well. And because you're playing well, you're like, I'm going to make all the correct plays. So while going up to 4 bases and getting all my upgrades and getting a setup, I'm going to shark around with my army as well and look really cool. Look at me being a dynamic player. But sometimes I think it really pays in StarCraft to be boring and lame. If you got yourself in a good spot, right? If you did the hard work of surviving that terrifying Terran push at first and already getting some damage done on the other side of the map with some Zealot harassment, and then the Zealot Blink Stalker counterattack that picked up a few more, you really don't need to do much. You could have just been a lame, boring Protoss. Sit there, get a few more Robo units out, get some Archons out, and I think Astrea would have been in a prime position to walk away with that game. It's never easy, but I honestly think it was his game to lose.
Yeah, just getting a little bit too tricky like you were talking about before. Hopefully, he'll be able to bounce back from that and kind of learn his lessons. Future going to be moving in with that good old SCV scout, just confirming things, not actually going for the usual Reaper scout, and is going to have the Reaper come in just a little bit later on.
Yeah, maybe worried about that pro being super annoying. If you send your Reaper to the other side of the map immediately, actually he follows it up with a Marine, so I don't think he had much to worry about, but I guess.
Yeah, I wonder if it was just because we kept seeing like the Stalker or Adept aggression from Astrea try and snipe off that SCV build in the command center.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see. I mean, what we do know is that there is another reactor being built on the barracks, and the factory is pretty close to the barracks, so he could go for the Swapperoo and try to make some Hellion play happening one more time. But it could also be just Marines and then the traditional Widowmine opener.
Yeah, the Widowmine opener that nearly seemed like it was going to be able to get a lot of damage in one of those previous games. Didn't quite end up doing so, but second time's the charm. Well, Adept going to be able to snipe off one of these Marines before it loads up into that bunker, because the bunker is not completed. Reaper will be able to save its life, but the Adept gets out of there with a lot of hit points and probably pretty happy about its skill.
Yeah, what I would hate here if I'm Astrea is that my Shade did actually not get on top of the ramp. I think that's really important, and that's why he's going to send the Shade one more time. Only sees the barracks. That's a bit tricky. We've got a proxy Dark Shrine, by the way, in the bottom right side. Astrea has been in Korea for so long. He's been infected by the Zest. I don't know. Gems, I guess. It's like, all right, so this is how I play PvT. I proxy Dark Shrine. Zest is like, yes, and if you lose
Can you argue with the results?
Proxy Gateway as well. Well, Future did not open up with a Raven in either game, so obviously there's some good potential here. Resonating Glaives as well. Wait, okay, he canceled that. I was like, what?
Okay. I thought maybe he was starting it up because he saw the Reaper and the Hellion or something were moving across the map, and he just wanted to fake it out. He's starting up Blink right now. We'll see if he keeps that around as the army or this little squadron over here for Future does get cleaned up. Is he going to leave Blink? Yeah, okay, there's
okay. So is it going to be charged then? Or I actually think like Blink is not a bad upgrade to have, even if you open up with Dark Templars. A little bit surprised about this. There is a Raven. I don't know if Future is just expecting it or if he has already put 2 and 2 together and he's like, there's just something missing there. The timing of maybe your Robo felt a bit off to me. You don't have enough units. But the Raven is going to be perfect, and Future is actually finally not falling behind after the early game. This is as good as it ever gets for the Terran player. Can he get the Raven, the Dark Templar kill? The answer is yes. Amazing start for the Terran. After 2 rough starts, this is a really good one.
Absolutely. Now Blink is going to get started up for real for Astrea. Gonna try and load up that DT into the Warp Prism, drop it into the main base. Now, you mentioned that there's the Raven, but it is sitting inside the natural, so it's gonna take a few seconds to make its way over to the main. We'll see how much damage that Warp Prism can get done. Oh my god, I think we're already seeing the Raven and the Marines pull over the main base. Future just senses it, loses one Marine. Not sure he's gonna lose a whole lot more.
No, I mean, I must say, I've seen a couple of scenarios like this where Zest was playing, and I was like, oh, this is really bad for the Protoss. This is not what you can do. And then Zest is like, shut up, nerd. And he just like keeps dropping TTs. And then eventually even Archon harasses a little bit. I'm like, this is not even a thing in this matchup. But then he just somehow still got quite a bit of damage done and bought enough time for himself to, in the end, make this a good opener. At this point, it's safe to say it's not a good opener for Astrea. He wants... Whoa, Future actually shot at his own tech lab as well. But it was only Combat Shield, right? Combat Shield is nowhere near as important as Stim.
Yes, losing Stim can be devastating, but... Well, that tech lab did not... Okay, it is getting repaired back up now by the SCV. I was going to say, you'll just leave that alone. That is another opportunity for Astrea to move back in later, but... We do end up seeing, I think, the salvage on the bunker, the Marines starting to move out. And the nice thing about the DTs is that they sometimes can, even when there's a Raven out, at least keep your opponent at home for a little bit. But now it looks like the DTs maybe just gonna try and catch the tail end of some of these Marines. You were talking about combat shields not being that important. Well, help at least the Marines survive versus the DTs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is important. It's just that Stim is a lot more important. Now, the Colossus is not out yet. And even if the Colossus does get out, there is that Raven with a lot of energy. Interference Matrix is something you really have to worry about. No, Future, what was that? He just kind of sacrificed the Raven there. That's the big mistake, in my opinion, because now he can't Interference Matrix the Colossus. There's still a lot of potential in his push, as he has a couple of Marauders in the mix as well. And this Protoss army is just weak, Robbie.
Yeah, Astrea is looking for an opportunity to move on, and he's got one DT in over there. I would not hate if he just sent that DT over to the siege tank or something. But I think he did end up actually finding an opportunity. Yeah, he got another DT over there and sniped it off. Well done.
Yeah, I had a flanking DT, came out of nowhere, started working on the DT as that stock, and just ran in range of that was the Widowmine. I gotta say, Future is, I think, still in a decent spot as that Warp Prism is getting awfully close towards all these bio units. You gotta be so careful of your Astrea. Wow, Future just picks up 4 medevacs again, and he's heading towards the main base. There is one pylon powering 5 gateways. Your Toast pylon of all our Toast pylons. As there's only another pylon powering the Twilight Council and oh my goodness, if Future gets that one pylon on the right side, I mean, canceling Blink is pretty damn amazing as well. That's going to allow him to be aggressive a lot longer. He sees the pylon. Can he get it? No, he's going to settle for some probe damage instead.
Yeah, I think a little bit of a safer base. Might be able to find another one of these pylons and then load up in the medevac, jump over to the natural. No, he's okay. I was going to say, sticking around there for quite a bit of time. There he is in the natural. Remember, there were just so many zealots there, right, for Astrea, so he had a hard time moving between these bases. But he does eventually make his way over to that third base now, finding even more probes, and definitely more than equalizing the damage that Astrea was trying to do with those DTs.
Yep, I mean, this almost feels unfair because now Future can really show off how good he really is. He can shine, and there is nothing that Astrea can really do. He can only chase and hope that Future makes a couple of mistakes. But if you don't have Blink, this is a nightmare to deal with this kind of stuff. You're just always going to be out of position. The one medevac carrying the unit actually took a lot of damage there. Astrea needs a miracle, and he needs to do it, I guess, off the back of some great Warp Prism play on the other side of the map. But not having Blink, Robbie. No Blink, no Phoenix. How on earth are you ever supposed to defend medevac harassment?
It is a really, really tough ask right now, but I think all they can do right now is, I guess, just split up his army a little bit more, right? And try and prepare for some of the medevacs, diving into the main base and have the rest of his army elsewhere. But that, of course, leaves him very vulnerable to something else, which is a big main army assault, which is, funny enough, what he's going to be dealing with. But he's doing what I was talking about. He's got half of his army over in the main base, and now that means he's going to be very spread out.
A couple of Dark Templars are going to get walked in again, though, and I gotta say the Darksmite is definitely still kind of paying off. Now Future picks up everything again. This Protoss army is so slow. There is still no Blink. Don't forget about that pylon. That one pylon is still there. And the Vikings actually flanking the Colossus. I love that play as well. If you can get a couple of shots off, the answer is yes. Future is playing great.
Future doing a lot of good damage over here, but now he's just trying to kite versus the Zealots. The pylon should be safe for a little bit. The Vikings all going down, not able to take out the Colossus. Future is starting to lose a lot of supply over here, and if the Stalkers start focusing down the Medivacs, they do manage to find a few of them, and Astrea, at the end of the day, does not actually end up losing that much in the main.
I know. I have no idea how Astrea defended that as well as he did. Maybe there was a little bit of miscontrol on the Vikings because they were actually kind of shooting down a prism as well. And obviously picking up the Colossus was a much more important target there. You know, the worst thing about not having, well, I guess Blink is finally done at this point. There are no observers out on the map, so it's so hard to figure out that these drops are coming. Finally, that pylon goes down. I mean, the 0 time is the charm, I guess, and that means that 5 gateways are now unpowered. Astrea's supply blocked as well. He's going to start floating some real money soon.
Oh, he blinks over in his main base. Doesn't blink down the ramp, so that means it's going to be even harder to make it over to the 3rd base now, which has so many probes over here. It looks like Future's just expecting the army's going to be there, so he doesn't even bother with that base. Immediately just starts boosting on out to the left-hand side, satisfied with the damage he's done.
One Dark Templar is actually harassing the 3rd base, getting 5 SCVs. And just casually walking away again. It's like,
doesn't even have blink yet.
Yeah, my job is done here. She's just like, what? And he's been stimming around. He's like, what is happening actually? Man, I am so impressed that Astrea kind of weathered the storm there. He's really turning this into a game. And with the little tech that he was working with, that is honestly very impressive.
All right, ghosts are going to be popping out in a few seconds, and that is going to allow Future to get some really big EMPs off on that army. It looks like Astrea is starting to transition out from just the pure Colossus that he was making, only really getting up to 2, but he's starting to add on some disruptors. He does get scanned there.
Man, I think Future has been really upset about this game. Obviously, ghosts are out right now, so you can finally start taking care of these Dark Templars. There's another prism heading towards the main base. And this is one of these moments where I know that Future sometimes just says, to hell with it, I'm going to end the game. But against Disruptors, that could get dicey. Well, there's that forward stim. Future had enough of it. Once again, the Disruptor doesn't get the other one in time, loses quite a few units, and all of a sudden, this is turning into a disastrous scenario for Future.
Oh, even the DT's blinking in on top of the army. No scan being pulled out. The Widow Mines have all been used up. Finally, the scan comes out, but when the scan comes so late, the DTs survive.